Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the Occult Think Tank. My name is Greg. In this video, I'm going to be reacting to a video from a Christian that really goes into what I call the Christian tap dance. Because they know when they're posed with specific questions that it's not going to look good for them if they answer it honestly. So they'll tap dance around it. But this is going to show you that not only does their tap dance not work, it is inherently flawed. But first things first.
Your conversations with other people about Christ and Christianity and the real important things, you are going to encounter what I call the question. That is the question that stops most Christians in their tracks, and they don't really quite know how to deal with it. And the question was posed to me in a hour-long TV debate that I had with Deepak Chopra, the New Age guru, as we talked about spiritual things. And what he said to me is, so you're saying that anyone who doesn't believe just like you is going to hell? That's the way he put the question. Now, some people have said if you're careful how you push the question, you could win any argument. And the problem here is that this was a question about the exclusivity of Christ, a critical issue in Christianity, but it was put in a way that made me look really, really bad. So if I would have answered the question, yes, unless you believe that Jesus is the Messiah, then you will die in your sins, you will go to hell, I would have answered correctly, but I would have really given the wrong impression. I would have fulfilled a really negative stereotype that people have of Christians, and I would have played right into Deepak Chopra's rhetorical hand, and I did not want to do that.
And there is the key part of this. He didn't want to play into Deepak Chopra's hand because he knew that it would make him look bad. So he wants to tap dance around it. That's what Christians do. They will tap dance around questions like that because inherently they know it is wicked. But what I want to show you is what he is going into. The idea of Jesus and salvation. I want to show you this from the Bible. This is something I quote frequently that really rips the legs off of Jesus because this is a claim that he makes. I should say the opposite of. This is from Psalms 49 verse 7. None of them can by any means redeem his brother, nor give God a ransom for him. In other words, you can't pay for the sins or actions of someone else. That each person has to be accountable for what they do. That is inherently the basis of morality. Jesus makes the claim that he can, and he is here to take on himself the sins of the world. And I want to show this because it really gets at the heart of the problem with Jesus. Even the Son of Man has come not to be ministered unto, but to minister, and to give his life as a ransom for many. This is the heart of Christianity right here. The problem is it is in direct conflict with Psalms 49 verse 7, as well as Ezekiel chapter 18 verse 21. And I want to show you this quick because this goes into how somebody can be forgiven without the need for anything or anyone having to die. Christians only quote the first 7 words of Ezekiel 18:20 because that's all that fits their narrative or their agenda. The soul that sinneth, it shall die. They stop there because if they would read any further, the original sin idea falls apart. The Son shall not bear the iniquity of the Father, neither shall the Father bear the iniquity of the Son. Right there, the idea of original sin, that the sins of others are passed on to you, like the aspect of Adam and Eve eating from the tree of knowledge, that somehow was passed on to everybody. That goes completely against what you see right there. That is why Christians stop after the 7th word in Ezekiel 18:20. But it goes on to say, the righteousness of the righteous shall be upon him, and the wickedness of the wicked shall be upon him. Next verse. But if the wicked will turn from the sins he has committed, number 1, change your behavior right there. If you do something wrong, first thing you have to do, change your behavior. Keep my statutes and do what is lawful and right. Right there. The idea of keeping the statutes, change your behavior, do what is lawful, good, right. He shall live, he shall not die. Now, you can't, in all honesty, take that as being you'll be immortal because all of us are going to die, regardless of whether or not we make mistakes, whether or not we harm anyone else, whether or not we do anything that is negative. The thing is, this would have been the perfect place to put in. But if the wicked will believe in my bastard kid that I'm going to send, then they don't have to do a damn thing. They're simply believing it will be enough to pay for it. The thing is, that's immoral. But I want to let this jackass go on with explaining his silly ideas, because it's important in this.
So in that particular circumstance, I sidestepped the issue
and went in a different direction. But we can't always sidestep that issue, and nor should we. We need to address it because it's really, really important. But how do we do that? And this is where the tactical approach, I think, is really golden, especially using the Columbo tactic in its third sense, and that is using questions to make a point. Using questions allows us to make the point in a much more powerful way, especially when we get stuck in a circumstance like this. People asking us about Jesus being the only way of salvation. This happened to me once in a Barnes & Noble where I was giving a presentation for a book I'd written, the relativism book, and afterwards during the Q&A, someone came up to me and asked the question, why do I need to believe in Jesus? He said, I'm Jewish, I believe in God, I try to live the best life that I can. Why do I need Jesus? So there's the question again, not as belligerently put as with Deepak Chopra, but the question. Now here's a case where I want to lead up to the point. I want to make the point by making a couple of steps. I have a choice at this point. I could go ahead and state my steps as part of my argument, put my pieces on the table, so to speak, and then come to a conclusion, which leaves me with a certain liability. Every time I make a claim that is a stepping stone to my conclusion, the other person, especially if they're a little bit belligerent, can just deny the claim.
I want to stress something. Notice he's saying belligerent. I can be extremely belligerent. I pull no punches. The thing is, what I take his belligerent as is any opposition to him. Anyone that is not kissing his ass and looking at him as some kind of guru himself. He's the authority. You ask him a question and the answer he gives you is right because he is him. Bullshit. Your answer is not right just because you have written a book or whatnot. No. Your answer has to fit logic, reason, and ethics. There is an ethical code that all of us that aren't, to use the term, sociopaths or psychopaths, inherently have. The aspect of fairness. I can demonstrate that the idea of fairness is also demonstrated in primates. That primates get upset when things are, from what they're seeing, not equal, not fair. And trying to play word games and dance around it does not change the inherent message you're actually trying to give. But to continue.
And now I get nowhere. So instead, I am going to use questions to get those pieces placed on the table by the other person. Because if they put those pieces on the table, it's a lot harder for them to take them off, to deny them, okay? Let me show you how that works with the question, all right? And this person who asked the question, they're at the Barnes & Noble. I said, when he offered the question, do you mind if I ask you a couple of questions? No, go right ahead. Here was the first question I asked. Do you think that people who commit moral crimes ought to be punished? In other words, do people who do bad things, should they pay for them? And he said, well, since I'm a prosecuting attorney, yeah, I got lucky on the attorney part, but most people have this sense, this deep intuition that people who do wrong things should not get away with them, okay? And so I agreed with him. I agree that people who do wrong things ought to be punished. So now we've got a piece on the table. He put it there because I asked him the question. Second question, have you ever done any wrong things?
I call this the Ray Comfort approach. And what I think is very telling is look at the fucking smug smile that he has. He thinks he's been really slick in this. Have you done any wrong things? The thing is, just because you can believe a Jesus died does not negate what you have done. And just because I don't think like you, even if I've done things in my life that were quote unquote wrong, it does not mean that it becomes right for me to be tortured by your God in an afterlife because I don't think the right thing. That is something that the smug smile, I really want that to sink in and get across just the type of attitude someone like this has. He's trying to be slick. He thinks he's so fucking smart that he's gotcha because he did these setup questions. The problem is what I showed with what's in this bullshit. The idea that you can just wash away what you have done because you think something does not work. It is not moral. It is not ethical. But to continue this.
That's personal, right? What do you think he said? He said, yeah, I guess I have. If he would said he didn't do any bad things, I want to talk to his wife, No, of course not. We all know we've done wrong things. I agreed with him. So have I. And then I said, now we got another piece on the table. And so I said to him, look at where we come just in 2 questions. We both agree that people who do bad things ought to be punished, and we both agree that we've done those bad things. You know what I call that? I said to him. What? He said. I said, bad news. This is not a good picture for us. Now, do I need to tell this man he's a sinner? No. He just told me. Do I need to tell him that he's under judgment? No. He just told me. Now, he wasn't thinking about that when he walked into the Barnes & Noble. But when I asked him a couple of simple questions that brought these moral intuitions, moral common sense really, to his awareness, he laid them right on the table. Now I've got something to work with. And then I went from there and I explained, it's as if the judge is about to lower the gavel on the 2 of us in the dock, and we both know we're guilty, and we both know we deserve what we're going to get. And then the judge pauses and says, by the way, are either of you guys interested in a pardon at this point? Look, when you know you're guilty, you're much more open to an offer of forgiveness. And that's exactly where I wanted to bring him. And then I explained in very simple terms about substitutionary atonement.
And that is what gets into what I was showing with Psalms 49 verse 7, as well as Ezekiel 18, 20, and 21. This idea is immoral. This idea goes completely against what is in this shit. Because where it says, but if the wicked will, it does not say, think the right thing. All they did will be washed away. Because that does nothing for those your actions hurt. One of the things in our courts right now is, and in our society, is that they're trying to change the term used for pedophiles to minor attracted persons, and to try to soften pedophilia. And what this jackass is showing is why jailhouse conversions are so fucking common. Because when you have somebody that has been convicted of a crime, they're very interested in wanting a pardon. The problem with this message is it does nothing for those your actions hurt. The idea that you can be forgiven while the person that your actions hurt has to live with the hurt you caused. And yet you think that this is good, that this is good news, that you can have your shit washed away, but the harm you caused, the other person has to live with because you don't give a fuck about them. You only care about your own sorry, self-centered ass. If a God would exist and would be a figure of morals, it would have to be as outraged at this idea as I am. Because this gets at the heart of all for me and fuck you too. Christians don't give a goddamn about how their actions hurt others. All they care about is their own sorry, self-centered ass. They want to try and play things and spin it so that their shit is washed away. But they don't want to be accountable for anything. The thing is, I have major disdain for Christianity because I have no time for think as I demand or else. It does not work. It is not moral. It is not ethical. You can't use this shit to try and justify that. The idea that somebody would try and look to the idea of someone else paying for your actions. You can't pay for your fuck-ups as if your fuck-ups are socks at Walmart. It doesn't work that way. And if Jesus died to pay for your sins, then you might as well fucking do them. He died for them. That is giving Christians a license to sin. A license to do bad shit. It is not discouraging them from doing it. There is absolutely no incentive to not do the bad shit when you have the scapegoat that's already paid for everything you've done that you could do. It is utterly immoral. And it is something that I find absolutely reprehensible. I have absolutely no interest in such an evil system. It's not about doing what is right. It's not about justice. It's about sadism for the sake of sadism. Because even if somebody is a Jeffrey Dahmer or even a Hitler, for as wicked and vile as they were, and there's no making excuses for either of their behaviors, all torturing them in an afterlife would do is show that you're no better than them. It doesn't show that you're good. It doesn't show that they're wrong. It doesn't show that what they did was bad. All it shows is that you're no different than them, because you're engaging in the same type of sadism for the sake of sadism as they did. You do not show you're better than somebody else by acting just like them or worse. This is the inherent flaw in the Christian thinking. They want to try and excuse anything that their God does because their God is, in their mind, perfect. But if their God is doing things that are absolutely evil, when you look at it from the aspect of, is this behavior right or wrong, regardless of who's doing it, you do not get to have a different standard if it's your team. This is getting into politics. That as long as it's done by Democrats, the Democrats are going to go along with it and say it's okay. Or if it's done by Republicans, the Republicans are going to say it's okay. Horse shit. Just because the person is on your team doesn't mean that what they do is right no matter what. Behaviors are right or wrong because they are based on their own merit, not based on what party, what team are they part of. This is the problem with the religious type of thinking. And it is something that I have a major, major problem with. Because yes, everybody makes mistakes. But you do not show that somebody is wrong by torturing them. Especially, infinite punishment for finite crimes is in itself immoral, unethical, tyrannical. Any quote-unquote punishment that never ends is not a punishment. The purpose of punishing somebody has to be for the goal of them learning and changing their behavior, learning that what they did was wrong. When a parent punishes a child, they aren't doing it to hurt the child. They're doing it to teach the child. But if the punishment, if the beating never stops, what are they learning? What are they teaching? And that's what Christianity is all about. Think what we say, or the beating will never stop. The evil one is the one behind that system. Feel free to leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section. Later, people.